Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews. I was talking on the microphone earlier and just wanted to make sure that if I had coronavirus, that when I came back, I wouldn't catch it from myself. So just being very careful, sanitizing everything I can. You guys, we are rolling again on another week. Hey, that live notification button is going to come up anytime now. And so just click that thing so that you will know when we are live. And occasionally I need somebody to tell me, hey, you are alive. So that'll help. And also, go ahead, if you don't mind, if you're coming in here, please go ahead and share this to your page. See a bunch of people from Arkansas. Hi, Chris Comer. I'm looking forward to Thursday, Chris. We're doing the show again, Chris, and then obviously we got some good things coming. Brennan Blair, hi. People from Rogers, Arkansas. Another amazing blues play, especially. This is going to be, I've got a guest that is just like waiting with bated breath to get on while I'm here waiting with breath that smells like bait. Nadine Sanders from the Garden Spot, Red Oak Road. And Woody, hey man, you're just putting down the Traveler Summit. It's okay for the Blue Plate Special. That's okay. Did you guys have a good weekend? We had a good weekend here in Orange Beach. Matt, did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend.
It was pretty quiet. I actually came up to the studio and just kind of hung out a little bit. So Kelly says the root beer looks good. This is good. You know, I mean, IBC root beer. I am a kind of a connoisseur of root beer, and IBC is my favorite. I really like that. Marcia, hi from Houston, Texas. Houston, out there with Mark Lowry. Mark and his palatial estate. Hey, did you like the music? You like the music coming in? Coming in, going out, that's Sugarcane Jane. I talked to Jimmy Urey yesterday. Jimmy says, hey, Sherry Kirkpatrick. And you like live guests? Well, just wait. Just wait. In fact, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on because I am very excited about it. And let me just tell you, too, that those of you who are getting the podcast, he will be my podcast guest tomorrow. All right? So this is a guy that I've known for a while. And it's funny that he has a new book out called In Awe. I mean, you want to get like 2 or 3 of these because the book is incredible. But it's funny to me. The book is named In Awe, Rediscover Your Childlike Wonder to Unleash Inspiration, Meaning, and Joy. And it's kind of funny to me that the book is named In Awe because I am in awe of this author. I have been for a long time. It's been a good friend of mine. And please welcome John O'Leary. John, are you there?
Andy Andrews, I'm here
hey,
eating with you, having a root beer with you.
Turn him up just a little bit, Matthew, if you can.
Okay.
John, are you there?
I'm here, brother. How you doing, Andy?
Okay. I can barely hear him. I'm going to put in both earphones. Both. So, you know, one may wonder why I didn't have both earphones in to begin with, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's because I put both earphones in, I can't hear Matt. And then Matt tries to tell me to do something, and I don't know what I'm doing here. And so, how about now?
I hear you loud and clear, Andy. Can you hear me,
I had
bud?
the wrong earphone in. I just had the wrong earphone in because now I got left ear, baby, you're coming in loud and clear. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. For those of you who don't know John O'Leary, I don't know that there is anybody more in demand as a speaker right now in America than John. And John's first book was called On Fire. This In Awe book, we'll talk about it in a minute. But John, do you mind? I know that you probably like I've told this so many times, but do you mind telling just a little bit of your story to people? And just you guys listen to this. I just love John.
So Andy is my role model, and when I grow up, I hope I become Andy Andrews. So let's start with that as part of the story. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
then chapter two is this, man. I never wanted to tell anybody about my story. I never told friends in grade school, middle school, high school, or college, roommates, girlfriends, nobody about what happened to
Really?
me when I was a little boy. Never told a soul, man. I was 27 years old before I answered the question that you just asked me a moment ago with truth of what really happened. And what really happened is the Blue Plate Special with Andy Andrews, was burned in a house fire on 100% of his body. I spent 5 months in the hospital, lost my fingers due to amputation, went through years of surgery and therapy, and dealt with a lifetime of some challenges. And so, Andy,
Now
I
you
never
you're
wanted to
9 years
tell
old,
anybody.
right, John? 9 years old.
I was 9 when it all went down, and it was terrifically difficult. And even though back then in real time, it was also packed with grace and love and redeeming characters showing up in my life, like my siblings, like my parents, like the doctors, the nurses, volunteers from around the world. We talked about them earlier. Like the Pope wrote a letter. People were planting trees in Israel. Some dark-haired guy named Ronald Reagan was writing letters with Nancy saying that they were praying for this little family from St. Louis, Missouri to get better. And so it really was a global movement of people loving this family with no chance forward.
Yeah, there was because they gave you zero chance to live, right?
Exactly right. I mean, 100% burn, the way you do the math today is you add a percentage of your body burned. So I know it's early, guys. Grab your root beer, do the math with me, grab your crayons. 100%, add the age of the patient, 9, and you got mortality. So for me, it would have been 109% likelihood of passing away.
It's just amazing, and you guys, you want to sign up uh, for John's podcast. He has a podcast. It's Living Inspired. John O'Leary and John, tell us where they can. It goes. John O'Leary inspires, right?
Yeah.
John
So if you
O'Leary
Google John
inspires.
O'Leary,
Yeah.
right, that ought to pop up. The podcast is called Live Inspired. You can learn about all of the work we do at readinawe.com, just an easy site to remember. It's called readinawe.com. And as you learn more about John O'Leary, more about his stories, more about his books, more about his speeches, you realize nothing he does ultimately is about him. I'm not the main character in the Blue Plate Special or anywhere else in life. I happen to be a character, but I'm just holding up a mirror, showing the good work that other people are doing, what they are teaching, how they are showing up, and what it might mean for the rest of us going forward.
Right. John, there's a lot of people. I mean, I'm just watching the comments come in like crazy with people saying they love you and they're appreciating meeting you today. Dean O'Brien says he loved reading your last book. Melody Van Arsdale, and a lot of people saying just thanks so much. Linda Berg, Mary Crossler Taylor, just thanks for having you on. Hey, I do want to ask you something. How often do you Google John O'Leary?
Man, so my mom, I'll answer that question, Andy, by sharing a story. My mom is one of the wisest people I know. And we were watching Miss America just to show you the level that the O'Leary family is hanging out on back in like 1993. But I'll never forget
Right.
it. The woman won. She's got her flower. She's got her crown. And my mother went to turn off the TV. And here's what my mom said. I'll never forget it. John, all it would take is for one person to say one negative thing about her right now, and her whole night is ruined. And I think that's true for Miss America, but I know it's true for me. I realize how soft my skin is, man. And so I
Man, me
don't
too.
Google myself because I don't want to be influenced by someone else's take on me. I want to be authentic. I want to be real. I want to be love. I want to be bold in my faith. I want to be bold in my life, but I don't want to be influenced by someone else saying, why would he wear a blue shirt? Why would he say that? And so I try not to Google John O'Leary or see just about anything else written about John O'Leary. We have a book already out called On Fire. It has 564 five-star reviews. It's got 3 negative reviews. Do you
I
think I'm
know
more
that's
fired
the
up
ones
about
you
the
look.
500 plus or dude, every time, man. So I don't want to be influenced by the negativity. I choose joy, and I want to
I
reflect
hear you.
that, and I don't want to be brought down by it, man. So I'm not running for office, people. You can't bring me down.
Well, I hear you. And I'm the same way. Golly, man, I finally decided I was not reading these Amazon reviews because if they were horrible about me, I thought, well, I, I, they're wrong. And then I got to thinking, well, if they are very nice to me, I thought, well, they might be wrong too. So I'm just not going to read any of them. The reason that I asked, I was not being a smart aleck, but the reason I asked if you Googled yourself, because I knew you didn't. I knew you did. I knew you didn't for a couple of reasons. I knew you didn't just for that reason you just gave, but I also knew you didn't because I did. Because I was just trying. I was just looking around, and your picture is up there with your books and a couple of other books that you did not write. But it also says that John O'Leary is a chartered surveyor and chartered town planner and senior lecturer at the School of Architecture, Design and Construction, University of Greenwich, United Kingdom.
I'm busy. So when I'm not
you are
working,
busy.
speaking, and writing, or doing podcasts, or raising 4 kids, I go to my summer house in Greenwich and I do land surveying, and I do it well. I do it very well.
Yeah, you do it well, and take no criticism for it. So I got a question about On Fire. This book, to me, I just that book blew me away, and knowing your story. And by the way, you guys, if you're listening today, you must get the Professional Noticer podcast that comes out tomorrow. All right, because John is the guest on that, and we talk a lot longer than we have the opportunity to today, and we get more in depth about his story. And you want to hear the story of how Jack Buck, the Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Cardinals, influenced his life when he was very young. John, here's a question. On Fire released in 2016. This book, in all, in 2020. So I'm just curious, why so long between the books? Now, I do that too, but I have my reason, and I don't see anybody else doing that but you, and I'm just curious.
So I've never fancied myself as a speaker, even though I've spoken 2,200 times in front of a couple million people. I don't fancy myself as a radio host or podcast host. I don't fancy myself as an author. These things are titles that I get to wear from time to time, but they don't define me. And so I wrote a really beautiful book called On Fire. And I said what I needed to say about life and about selflessness and about grace and about love and about people showing up in the right way. And I laid it out there. It has done very well. And I was extraordinarily proud of what On Fire had done and the impact that it was continuing to have. And then, Andy, why I came back into writing is this. I saw this need that we adults have to be reminded of what joy looks like in action. I saw the possibility we have to return to how we once were as kids, when life was full of possibility, when we were ferociously optimistic, when we believed that life indeed was good and the best days remain in front of us. When we were children, we naturally had this sense of awe and wonder and expectancy and freedom. It just grounded us, but it also freed us to go boldly into the day. And then as we age through school, age through life, follow our way forward, we miss out. We lose sight a little bit of these characteristics we once had. And so I'm witnessing how we adults frequently are enduring the mundane and the challenges of each day versus the way a child does naturally. I wanted to put forward an idea in front of people that would remind them how they once were, what they lost, how to return to it. And in doing so, how it would radically change not only your life, which is awesome, but the entire world, which is our calling.
That's awesome. Coach John Daly says, holy cow, it's John O'Leary. Can't wait for his new book.
I like
pre-ordered it a while ago. Fired up. Hey, you guys are on your computers right now while we're talking. And so you might as well, click in Amazon and just keep listening and watching and go ahead and order a couple of these books. Rob Mitchell says hello. And, with this book, the reason I ask about the time between books, I see a lot of integrity in your writing process. Um, and how do I put this without? I don't mean to. I don't mean to disrespect other people, and I hope this doesn't. But when I started writing books, one of the first things that the publisher said, and you got a publisher. I mean, this is Penguin Random House. This is you got a major traditional publisher, and when I first started writing, the publisher said, "Okay, we need one every year. We need one. Come on, we need one every year. Got to have one right now, right now, right now." And I just, because they said, "We got to brand you. We got to brand you," and I know that I probably hurt, what we laughingly refer to as my career. But my thing is, I, I thought, look, I can write the same thing again in a different way, but I got to learn. I got to be with my family
Amen.
and be around people and read and listen myself. I have to learn if I'm going to have something else to say. And so, I've just finished this. I just finished the third Noticer book, and I saw what the publisher wrote about the book, and they said it's been 7 years since readers heard from Jones, and I was like, really? It's been 7 years. I mean, it didn't seem like 7 years to
Yeah.
me, but I feel like the older that I've gotten, for a long time, my learning was lagging way behind whatever schedule they wanted me to write on. But and so I really, I want everybody to know that when you see this book, In Awe, you just know, because sometimes people, it kills me, John. People look at books sometimes and they go, wow, $25 for a book. And I want to go, no, $25 for 4 years of John O'Leary's life. If you like, if you are inspired at all by John, if you like what he does, or if you admire him, or you think there's something you can learn, man, I mean, $25 for 4 years of this guy's thinking compressed into one. Because it's like people ask me sometimes, or I'll talk and they'll say, wow, I wish I'd have met you 30 years ago. And I'm like, you didn't want to meet me 30 years ago. I couldn't have done anything. But now I can write a book that can help you get what's taken me that long in a few hours. But I'm proud of you for how you have done this book and what's in it.
Well, I just appreciate you saying that. And your point around the 4 years it takes to write a book, that's part of it. It's also a lifetime of experience. It's that 3 decades that they were talking about earlier that is so relevant, that makes what you have to say worth reading and investing in. I always think, Andy, for me, when I consider buying a book or not, whatever the author is, whatever the subject matter is, for me, it's not the $20 or whatever it is. It's, do I really believe that investing several hours would elevate my life? Forget about the investment of a few dollars. It's that time away from kids, that time outside of nature, that time away from work, that time away from doing whatever else I could be doing otherwise. And so when I sit down to write, I want it to be the kind of thing that afterwards you are a radically different, better person. I want to write the kind of newsletters. I want to create the kind of podcasts. I want to create the kind of books that after you're done, you don't return to who you were before. And then you take what you've just learned and you pass it on to someone else that you love. So that takes a little bit of time to get something wrapped up in a bow that beautiful.
Yeah, we've got a lot of comments coming in. People saying, "Hey, I just ordered both." Annette just said you ordered both. Pete Black did. I'm curious. I got two questions, if you don't mind, and then we'll let you go. But I am curious. What did you edit out of this book? What did you consider putting in and think, nah, this doesn't really fit, but you liked it, you just didn't, for whatever reason, you didn't put it in? Anything?
Yeah, so as you know, much of your best work ends up right down there by your feet for some reason as you go
Yeah.
through the process of writing a book. And so in the first one, On Fire, I was amazed at how many beautiful stories were not in there and that would never be used again, because I have one
Right.
great book in me now. I'm done forever. And I'm amazed at how on the cutting room floor, some of those stories that weren't perfect for On Fire are perfect for the book in Awe. They just fit in wildly with the research and with what we wanted the reader to go through on this journey from going from where we are to where we were to ultimately where we can go next. That's why the cover of the book is a blue sky with white, pretty clouds, brilliant letters, and then this red free kite flying high above everything else. The idea is that is you again, imagining that anything at all is possible in your life. And I would suggest, Andy, the thing that I cut out that may eventually come back into another book are a few more stories around John O'Leary, the husband. So some of the examples of this show up most perfectly in some regards and most poorly in some regards in the way I am as a man, in the way I am as a servant at home, in the mistakes that I make and the lessons that I learn, and in the wife that I strive to be a better person for. And for those of you viewing right now, you see over my shoulders all these pictures of kids, and this wall behind me is why I work. I work really, really, really hard, not out of ego, not for cash, not for likes on Facebook or for 5 stars on Amazon. I work because I want the world to be a far better place for my kids to grow up in than the one I think we currently have now. I think the world is a pretty good place, but I believe we can make it a far better place. And so they're why I work. And there's no one who I love and respect more than my bride, Beth. And so I wrote a little bit about that in this book and some of the mistakes I've made. And a lot of that ended up on the floor. Not all of it, but some of it. And I think later on, Andy, there might be an opportunity to bring forward a book on marriage that, gosh, I mean, I need to learn how to do it better.
Yeah.
And I would imagine others would too.
We got a comment here from Polly that says, John, please write that marriage book very quickly. So my wife is she's pulling for you, buddy, and I'd like the early review copy. Hey, Matt, do we have a picture? We have a picture of John's book to throw up on the screen.
It's been going up and down today.
It's been going up and down. Good. And let's see. I had one more question that I just thought that I think that a lot of us would want to know. And let's see. Somebody is there's just tons of questions about you, John. I mean, they're flying by me so fast. One is, would you please tell us, because your podcast, I listen to your podcast, you're Monday and Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm. Monday and Thursdays.
Yeah, so she's twice as good as anybody else. She's doing them twice a week. So John O'Leary's podcast, twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. And yours are audio, and where, just tell us where we can get them really quickly.
Real quickly, Live Inspired. Anywhere you download podcasts, you can download mine. So it's at Live Inspired with John O'Leary. I interview people that I respect, Andy, and Andy Andrews. It's not by chance that you've been on our show twice. I've had a couple hundred episodes released. We've had a couple million downloads, so it's well received. But I interview astronauts. My kids and I, one of my favorite stories to share is my kids and I were watching Apollo 13. And my son, Jack, asked the question, Daddy, when did he die? The Tom Hanks character. When did he die, Daddy? And I didn't know, so I Googled it. Turns out Commander Jim Lovell is alive and well in Chicago. So I had the opportunity to go up, meet Jim Lovell, this man who has been around the dark side of the moon twice. And as I'm hearing the story about how he grew up in the Depression without a dad, how he went off to war, the mistakes he made, trying to get into the astronaut program, failing out of that, getting in finally, and failing in the mission of Apollo 13, right as he's wrapping up the Apollo 13 story, his wife walks in, his wife of 72 years. She looks at me, looks at Jim, looks at the microphone and goes, Jim, for goodness sake, not the moon story again. So here's the dude who has been to the dark side of the moon twice, who is unable to share the story of the moon because his wife is not impressed by him or that story. So I love sharing the stories of normal human beings who do extraordinary things. And that's all of us. Sometimes they're astronauts, sometimes they're custodians. But man, I think we undervalue our life and the ability our life has to impact those around us. So that's primarily, you love noticers. I love noticing heroism around me. And because I'm looking for it, Andy, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
I love what you do, and in fact, it's influencing. You've influenced me greatly for a long time, and but what you do is influencing us. We're finishing up the studio here, and I told you the other day. I said you're going to be my very first podcast guest, and we're going to that format soon when we're able to get in here and do that all the time. But as you know, I've already got you coming here for July, buddy. So I'll be passing you. I'm going to have you on. We'll have like a John O'Leary show or something here at Wisdom Harbor Studios. But
They
man,
will have an
here,
audience of one with Susan O'Leary
no,
tuning in.
no,
My
no,
mom.
we won't. No, we won't. I'm telling you, man, people will be beating down the doors to get in to see you. Okay, so I got one last question, and this is a curious one to me, and I think a lot of people will be interested in this. What is a book that we probably haven't heard of, and you think, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest book ever? I mean, what book have we not heard of that is one of your favorites?
Get ready for it. All right. So that's one. I do like the book in shameless plug, but the reality is this book and the book on fire and the way I construct my life took more shape from the book I'm really going to share with you than anything else I could share with you. So over to my right, and if I try to move this monitor, I know I'll lose the signal. But over to my right, there's this fake oil painting that is done originally by Rembrandt. And it's the final painting Rembrandt ever did. It's the Return of the Prodigal Son. And it's a picture of this beautiful father bending down lovingly over this bald, impoverished son. He's missing his shoes. Over in the corner, there's all these judgmental people looking on, just wringing their fingers together with animosity and anger, judging this other kid who's coming back home. And they're judging the dad who's loving him anyway. I love this painting for many reasons, including the fact that Rembrandt painted it earlier. He painted it when he was at the high water mark of his life, when his career was killing it, when his wife was still alive, when his kids all loved him, when his fame he was on top of the world, man. And it wasn't that great of an artwork. In fact, it's been ignored by historians and art experts. But this came to be after one of his children passed away, after his wife passed away, after he lost his fame and lost his money. And he goes back and he paints the prodigal son story, and it's magical. And the reason I know this story is because I read a book by a guy named Henry Nouwen. Nouwen's Nouwen. Man, here's this Jesuit priest who is on top of the world, and he goes off and he serves in a community for kids with special needs in Canada. So he leaves academia, he leaves the fame, he leaves the fast-paced world that he was living in before. He goes to serve these kids, and he learns about life. He learns about scripture, and he learns about not just reading it, which is stupid. If you're just reading it to read, he learns about living into it. And so he writes a book called The Return of the Prodigal Son. And man, I saw myself in that boy coming home with brokenness. I saw myself in the judgmental older son looking on, wringing my fingers at all the people that are not as perfect as I am. But then I saw myself in the calling to be the dad. That's who I want to be. That dad up there, man, broken but loving, open-hearted, open-minded. His picture, it's a big old oil painting, man. I want to be just like that dad. And I don't want to lose the relationship with a son to get there. I want to get better at that every single day of my life. And so that informs how I speak. It informs who I interview. It informs the newsletters I write. It certainly informs the books that I write. And it also, most importantly, informs the way I live out my faith with my family. I want to be that dad that those kids deserve. And that husband, my wife, she married him. So I should return to him.
Man, thank you. Thank you, John. And you guys who've tuned in to the Blue Plate Special, I will claim one thing. If I have done nothing for you, I have introduced you to John O'Leary, one of my favorite people. John, say hi to Beth. Have fun with those kids, and you and I will talk soon.
See you in Florida, brother.
All right, buddy. Thank you now. Thank you. You guys, John is more than an amazing guy. John, he gets into my heart in a way a lot of people don't. you'll want to listen to the podcast, The Professional Noticer, that comes out tomorrow. And hey, by the way, Matt, is it going to hit the West Coast at 3:15?
That's right.
At 3:15. At 3:15. So, turn off your phone if you don't want to be awakened and angered and have to contact international news. But anyway, John, on the podcast that comes out tomorrow, we go into depth about some of the stuff that happened. And one of the most amazing stories I have ever heard in my life is what happened with, he was a Cardinals fan. The little boy, this little 9-year-old boy was a Cardinals fan. And with him laying there wrapped up, nothing but his eyes showing in the hospital, no chance to live. And Jack Buck, the announcer, comes into the room, and that's just the bare beginning of that story that you just have to hear it tomorrow. So, you guys, anything else that we need to talk about before you go? They kind of let a lot of people loose here last weekend, or this past weekend. So, it's just gonna be curious to see what else goes on. We got a lot of stuff that we're doing around in the studio, getting this thing ready to open. Kevin says he is in awe of John O'Leary, even if he is a Cardinals fan. But still, you remember the Cardinals. It don't matter. When John was a Cardinals fan, you remember the Cardinals because of Lou Brock and because of Ozzie Smith running across the field at the beginning and turning a flip. And if you guys don't remember that, or you want to show your kids something unbelievable, go on YouTube and just, put in Ozzie Smith taking the field. So just seeing Ozzie Smith, because that was the first ball. That was the first ball that John O'Leary got from Jack Buck, and how Jack Buck presented that and what he did to move that forward is astonishing. So Amy says, thank you for introducing John to us. Hey, listen, my pleasure. We're going to do a lot more of this. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to talk to a lot of people and hang with them together. So, you guys, we will see you again this Thursday, on the Blue Plate special. And surprises, okay? So I'm going to say goodbye. I've still got this here on the desk. This is still hilarious to me. Say goodbye to Boogertown, North Carolina. And wherever you are, I hope the weather is great. And if it's not, stay inside and make something great happen. All right? Bye-bye.